we are going to carry on where we left off in the last tutorial. So we, at this point, have this, semi kind of solid little layout here. But what you're going to notice is that for the most part, what we did was we just used placeholder text and images. I mean, if you call this an image. We also left everything at default settings. So we didn't really apply any of our own personal elements. All we really did was put the HTML in and connected CSS. So remember, HTML is the content. That's what we see in here. Okay. And the CSS is a sheet that says, like, what color things should be and whether they should have borders, the design elements. So that is being imposed on there, but not by us. We didn't create any custom stuff. So it is being formatted by CSS, but not by our CSS. So this is what we have. So, which is fine. I mean, it looks functional and it works properly. But obviously, if you were to see this out in the wild, you'd be like, oh, that's Bootstrap. It's very generic looking. So what we want to do is try to format it a little bit better so that it'll look better for us. Okay, so what we're going to do first is, instead of, you're going to see it's a little bit of a cumbersome process, but what we're going to do first, we're actually just going to have it make a general CSS sheet for us. Well, it's going to make it internal, but it's going to make a general CSS tag for us, an element. And then it will create basically our defaults, which this is one of those things that's kind of nice that Dreamweaver will do automatically for us instead of having to type it all out. So what we're going to do is just go to File, Page Properties. I think on a Mac, it might be like under this. I think it's in a different location. Just be aware. So, but Page Properties, if you can't find it here, like I said, it should be, maybe it's under Edit in the other ones. I'm not sure. You can always go to Help, and then usually there's a search on a Mac, and when you type it in, it'll actually point to where it is. That should work in most of their apps. So anyways, Page Properties. And you're going to see it has these different sections. We basically just go down the line and fill them all up. Okay. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. What we're going to do is we're going to want to have a default paragraph and a default. We want to have our default texts. Okay. And so that's where this part right here is going to be. Before I go to put this in, actually, I'll just show you this first. So the way this works is that you'll see that it has these ones already pre-built in, right? So default font means it's gonna allow whatever the browser decides that the typeface should be. That's what it's gonna be. So whether you're using Firefox or Chrome or Safari or whatever, Edge, if you're nobody's using that. Whatever browser you're using, it'll have its own default, and it'll just say do that. The other ones here, these are meant to be common fonts that most computers should have. I'm sure you've been on a computer and you will open it up and you work at the school's computer and you're like, oh, you're making this awesome this awesome PowerPoint presentation. And then when you get done, you're like, looks great. And you bring it home and then it doesn't look the same, right? Or you do it inside of Microsoft Word or whatever. You write text in one program and then you use a different computer, it no longer looks the same. And the reason for that is that you don't have the same typefaces, right? At this point, you guys are DI4, so you understand what I'm saying. The way this works here is that these are meant to be kind of common ones that should be on most computers. But you'll notice that there's multiple ones. And the reason for that is that what it's going to do is that the ones on the most left here are kind of the most specific or have the strongest design imposed on them. And the ones on the right, as it gets to the right, it becomes more broad, okay? Which also means that the ones on the left are the least likely to be on the computer that is viewing the website, and the ones on the right are most likely. So if you look, you'll see like Baskerville, and then it gets, well, let me use different. Okay, it'll say Gill Sans, and then it's like Gill Sans MD, Myriad Pro, blah, 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 Condensed, Helvetica, Arial, Sans Serif. Now, particularly these last three, you'll notice that if you're familiar with typefaces, you can see how they're kind of the same, but each one gets a little bit more specific. So sans serif, right? So you'll see it's serif on the right here, serif, serif, sans serif, sans serif, sans serif. So serif and sans serif, right? You can almost broadly be like typefaces usually fall into those two categories. So that's the most broad, most basic, right? So if you go a little bit above sans serif, a little bit, it's really common. It's a type of sans serif. It's almost like the default sans serif is Arial, right? Okay, it's a little bit more specific, but then you can go from Arial and a little bit more, particular is Helvetica. So as it goes this way, it gets more specific. As it goes that way, it gets less specific. And so what you can do is you can click on these, and that way, no matter what, it will show a typeface, but hopefully it'll show the first one. Now, this is fine, and you can use this, but the problem is, obviously, there's only this many options. And if you try to use a font that's not on here, and you can do that, if the person doesn't have that typeface, then it's not going to preview properly. So that kind of blows. Now, you can embed typefaces into your website. That is possible. But you're not allowed. You got to remember, when people view your website, what they're doing is they're downloading the contents and then viewing it on a web browser. You are not allowed to distribute typefaces. I mean, some of them you are, but those are few and far in between. So generally we use this. But if you don't want to use this, what you can also do is have a third party host typefaces for you. And then those typefaces can be used. They own the rights, right? And so they'll either link to it or they'll download from their website. And that way you're kind of covered. And it gives you obviously a lot more options. Now, in the web design class, we use Google Fonts. Adobe actually has their own, which is awesome. It's part of the whole Creative Cloud thing. So you get access to those. So you can go down here and click on Manage Fonts. We can also get to it. You can click on it there if you want. You can also get to it to Tools, Manage Fonts. And what this does is it basically will load in fonts into your thing to be readily available. Okay, so you're gonna notice it's actually got a really nice kind of interface here. Where right here you can do your custom font stacks. So once you make one, you could I want to go in this order. You can make your own. So these ones are already in here. Just be aware. Okay, so right off the bat, right, we need two typefaces typically, 2 to 3. So you need a heading font and we need body fonts, right? And then usually you can have a third one like your accent fonts, that you use for quotes and things like that, or you're making something stand out. We'll just worry about 2 for right now, but you can do 3 if you want. You can see this one is actually, if I hover over these, they tell you what they are. This is recommended for headings, recommended for body. And then down here, you can see list of sans fonts, serif fonts. Sans fonts, serif fonts. Okay. Now notice though, if we go to body, there's not as many options here, really. Oh, there's no options. Source sans. That's the one you're giving me here, huh? But if we go to here we go. I had both of them turned on. Whoops. There you go. And then you can see ones that they suggest, which is kind of nice because they give you those options. But you'll notice that some of them, like the decorative fonts, there's none in there. Oops, there's none in there because you wouldn't want to use a decorative font for that. So let's start with the heading. I usually start with the heading fonts. And then let's do a nice sort of, let's see. I don't like that one. I don't like those either. I don't like any of that. Don't like the handmade fonts. Not a big fan of that. All right, let's go with this one. Looks okay. We'll go with this one. So I'm going to take this one. That's good. Just click on it, put the check. All right. Now we're going to go body, turn this one off. So we'll go body, and typically sans fonts or sans serif fonts are better for body text. So I'm going to keep to that. I'm just going to go ahead and do the Droid sans. And then, so we have both those, and then I'll hit done. And now those are basically in they're available to me. Okay. So now let's go back to File, Page Properties. And now you'll see if I click this little down arrow, you can see I had done this a couple times before. You can see that we have both of those now available. Okay. So they should show up right here. So this is going to be my general font. So this means basically your body font. So choose the body font. In our case, that's the Droid Sans or whatever you chose. After that, it's going to say normal. That's the only option. And then this is weight. I don't know why it only says 400 and 700. I think because that's kind of their suggestion. But basically, it goes from 100 to 900. 100 being the thinnest, 900 being the thickest. Sometimes you'll also see it'll say bold, bolder, lighter, or something like that. You'll see it when we do the heading fonts. We'll leave it at 400. I think that's fine. Size 1 REM. That just means that it's going to be whatever the default size of the browser is. You can see you can do it by pixels and points. But it's best actually to do it by REMs because that will mean that it's going to be adaptive to the screen. So if you have a high resolution screen, this will adjust for that. The default text color of my body text, we'll just leave it black. I think that's fine. The background color. So, oh man, I don't have my colors anymore. So I need to choose a color for that. So let's just go ahead and go here, and I'm just going to do Adobe, or maybe it's color.adobe. Yeah, color.adobe. And you remember this before. So you can do the different themes and things like we did before. Oh, that's extracting a theme. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna leave it on color wheel because I just want to show you something that can be kind of interesting. So let's say I want to do like a split complementary color scheme. The more saturated, if I go way out here, right? So I'm taking this one, I go way out here. The more saturated it is over here, the less these are going to be harmonious with it. Okay. So basically, if I want to make a color that's absolutely harmonious with this, if I take this guy and if I go over here, you'll notice now it's analogous, right? But now they all sort of match. So basically, the closer in the vicinity, which means if I want to do like a red, right? It's gonna, in this case, it's doing complementary, so it's gonna pop against it. But if I want to make it like pop a little less, what you have to do is make it less saturated. So you pull it inwards, like so. And then you can actually get them to be more harmonious because you're putting it closer in proximity. So think of it like that sometimes when you're doing your things. Let's do an orange, and then we'll just do like that. Okay with that. Go like that. And then from here, I'm just going to adjust. Like this to be a little bit. We'll go with that. Okay, because I'm thinking this for background. Maybe this for like accents. And then we'll do maybe... we'll do this one. I'm just going to take the saturation down a whole bunch, and that'll be like my dark color. Let's go really dark. Okay, so that'll be my black, basically. This will be my background, and this will be kind of my accent, and then these will be, or like, you know, background colors, and then this will be like accents. I think that's fine. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and here, I'm just going to copy this, Control-C, go back to Dreamweaver, and, for text color, actually, I can just paste it in here. I'm just going to go ahead and paste that. It's good. Background color, I want to be this. So I'm just going to Control-C, Command-C, obviously, if you're on a Mac. And we will Control-V. I am not putting a background image, but if you want to have an image that goes all the way around the background, you would just click Browse. You would locate the image, and you would attach it. But make sure that you put the image in the Images folder. We're going to cover that in a little bit, but just be aware that that's something you would need to do. After that, you can choose whether you want it to repeat. Which, so like, let's say it's a tileable texture, like it's, I don't know, a toaster oven, and you want it to just be a wallpaper of them. You'd want to do repeat. You can also repeat only on X, meaning horizontally, only on vertical, or not have it repeat at all. Okay, margins, we don't need any of this. That's just going to be the gap. You guys are familiar with margins, but Bootstrap's already handling that for us, so we don't need to do that. Now, you'll notice that there's appearance CSS, and then there's appearance HTML, links, headings, CSS. Now, the idea here is that we are going to have CSS, but if for some reason that fails, or when it first loads, sometimes the HTML can also do some formatting. I'm not going to worry about this at all because I'm going to handle it doing CSS. But, you know, if I was making something for final, I might fill this all out and just use the same information just to make sure it's all good. But I'm not going to right now. Links CSS. So here we're going to say same as page font. Let's go ahead and do our heading font just so it sticks out a little bit. We'll keep it normal, and then it says 400. Let's actually make it a little bit thicker. So let's do, if it's 400 by default, let's do 600, just so it's a little bit thicker. Whoops, that didn't mean, I'm gonna hit enter, I didn't mean to. Okay, you can see it already applied a bunch of the stuff here. Where were we? On links. Okay, so back to links. Okay, so apparently that didn't, 600. Now we can choose the default size. We'll just leave it. I think whatever it is, it's fine. Now it's going to want the link color, rollover, and visited and active. So this is the default color. This is if you're hovering over it. This is if you click on the web page, go, and then you come back, it'll be a different color. And then this is if you're like hovering or if you're focused on it. So like if you were using your keyboard or whatever. I like to turn off always underline. I don't like the underline. We'll do show underline on rollover. Okay, so that just means when I hover over it, it will have an underline on it. Okay, so we want to do the link colors. So let's just go ahead and go back to our colors here. So I'm thinking for links, we can just use this color. So I'm going to copy this, Control C, and we'll go back here. So I'm just going to paste it here, Control V. And then on this, I will Control V, and I'm going to leave the active one alone. I don't really care. But obviously, I want these to change colors. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to shift them a little bit. So when I roll over it, let's have it get a little bit darker. Actually, let's have it get a little bit lighter. Okay. And then when we visit it, we'll have it get a little bit darker. Okay, like that. Great. Now we're going to go to headings. Headings, first thing we want to do is change that to our heading font. Normal is fine, and then for thickness, I don't know why it's not giving us options here. Let's go ahead and make it 800 because it looks kind of thin to begin anyway. And then here we can choose the default size. So you're going to see heading 1 is the largest. Heading 2 will be 2 times the default, 1.5, and then heading 6. So heading 1 is like your largest heading. So for instance, this is a heading 5. This is probably a I don't think this is a text, but anyway, that's what it's for. So if you wanted to change that custom, but I would just leave it as it is. It's fine. The last thing to do on this thing is the title. So when you go to a web page, you probably haven't noticed this. If you look on a tab, you will see up here on the tab itself says color wheel, a color palette, blah, blah, blah generator. That is actually the title of the page. So whenever you create tabs, what says new tab? I don't want to click on any of these things. We'll just click on this. You'll see Yahoo, blah, blah, blah. That's the name of the tab. Okay. So we can put a name in here. Oops. We can put a name right in the title here, and we'll just call this Dreams Come True. Okay. And we'll say that's good. I'll hit apply and okay. And now you'll see that the background colors are changed. My default link colors are now different. Yeah, so that's a good start. What it did is it applied all those, but what it actually did was this. If I scroll down, this is the top of my document. If I scroll down, you'll see it created, let me click on just code so you can see a little bit better. It created a style section here. So it's got the opening style tag and the closing style tag. And then it has all of this, the CSS rules that it made. So it says anything that has a body tag, table data or table heading is going to have this applied to it. The body has this color. The body is obviously the background here. Which are my links, my hyperlinks. They have this font. They're thicker, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's what this did. It applied and made this CSS for us, and then we'll just keep adding it. So this is called internal CSS, as opposed to this one, which is external CSS, because it's a separate sheet altogether. All right. And basically it's going to, the CSS, what it does is this is the selector. This is what it's target, or not, sorry, this is the selector. This is what it's targeting. And then it applies these properties. Okay. So to the font family, it will make it Troy Sans. To the font style, it'll make it normal. And the color will be this. So anything that has these tags on there. So for instance, see all the H1s, right? All of those will have this font family applied. The font style will be normal, and the font weight will be 100. So if you look, you can see like we have an H1 right. Where are you? Row offset. Where's my H1? Oh, because it was after the heading. That's why. So you see how we have this H1? This is going to apply to it because it says H1, H2, H3. So any of my H's, any of my headings. Okay. So that's what it did. Hopefully that made sense. And the next one, we're going to start working on our other parts here. All right. So good luck.